My friends, gather around and listen to the voice of an old man who has weathered many seasons and found solace in the wisdom of the Stoics. Today, let me share with you a reflection on what it means to train your mind so thoroughly that you learn to become, in essence, limitless. Now, when I speak of becoming limitless, I do not refer to acquiring fantastical powers or defying the laws of nature. I speak of a transformation of the mind, a shedding of self-imposed boundaries, fears, and illusions that keep us small. I speak of the Stoic path to true freedom, where the only limits that matter are the ones we place upon ourselves through ignorance or habit. With each passing year of my life, I have become more convinced that our greatest potential lies not in external achievements or accolades, but in the subtle and profound mastery of our thoughts and judgments. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, don't forget to smash that like button and hit subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Did you know only 15% of you watching are subscribed? If you find these insights valuable, join our community and tap the notification bell so you never miss out on future content. Perhaps you come to this discussion as a man somewhere between 25 and 65 years of age, navigating the complexities of career, family, friendship, and personal growth. Or maybe you find yourself in a transitional stage, having left one occupation for another, or wrestling with questions about your purpose. Regardless of your situation, Stoicism promises a radical shift in perspective. It teaches us that while external circumstances are often beyond our control, our thoughts and responses remain ours to shape. That is where your true power resides. To become limitless is to remove the shackles of despair, anxiety, envy, and regret, and to act with clarity of purpose. Allow me to begin with a story drawn from my own experience, so that we might ground these lofty ideas in something tangible. In my younger days, I worked as a craftsman's assistant, learning to shape wood and metal into useful implements. Though I took pride in my growing skills, I found myself increasingly preoccupied with thoughts about what others thought of my craftsmanship. Would they judge my work as inferior or laugh at my inexperience? These insecurities gnawed at me, constraining my willingness to experiment and learn. I was afraid to fail, not physically bound, but psychologically entangled in an ever-present concern for approval. My master saw this hesitation in me and remarked one day, "You hold yourself back more than any mistake in the workshop would." He insisted that I was free to attempt new designs, to risk imperfection, so long as I learned from each outcome. This small lesson in the workshop is the seed of what I later discovered as a core principle of Stoicism. We harm ourselves most with our own limiting beliefs and illusions. The ancient Stoics, such as Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Seneca, taught that we are all capable of a kind of inner emancipation. Epictetus, a slave in his youth, held that true freedom does not depend on one's external state, but on one's mastery over desires and aversions. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, held that even the most powerful man in the known world must guard against the tyranny of his own passions. Seneca, advisor to emperors and a man of great wealth, wrote extensively about the importance of living simply and focusing on virtue rather than excess. In each case, these figures conveyed that real power and real possibility arise from directing our minds inward, reining in our destructive impulses, and cultivating the capacity to remain tranquil amid adversity. But how does one go about training the mind in a Stoic sense? We might reflect on the practical techniques recommended by these philosophers. One such method is the continual practice of distinguishing between what lies in our control and what does not. This is perhaps the most fundamental Stoic principle. If you can separate the world into two categories, those things you can change and those things you cannot, you begin to see how much anguish and limitation arises from desiring control where you have none. Focus your efforts on what truly depends on you, your judgments, your intentions, your actions, and the way you choose to interpret events. Practice letting go of the rest, not in a lazy or indifferent manner, but with the recognition that to fight against what you cannot alter is a recipe for perpetual frustration. Think about the constraints you might be feeling in your own life. Perhaps you feel you've hit a plateau in your career, or you believe you are too old or too inexperienced to embark on a new path. Maybe you worry about your financial status, the opinions of your peers, or the direction of society. Much of this worry arises from the false notion that external achievements define your worth, or that you must conquer circumstances entirely to find peace. The Stoics remind us that while we certainly strive to do well and contribute positively to the world, our sense of self should not hinge on outcomes outside our control. If you become fixated on the thought, "I cannot be happy or free until I secure a higher position, more wealth, or universal approval," you hand over your tranquility and power to factors beyond your command. To become limitless, paradoxically, involves recognizing the inherent limits of our external influence, and in so doing, unleashing the mind's capacity to adapt, persevere, and find contentment. An essential exercise in this regard is negative visualization, or what some call the premeditation of evils. Before you recoil at the name, let me clarify its purpose. Stoics advise that you regularly imagine losing the comforts and securities you currently possess, your home, your job, your health, your loved ones. This is not a morbid fixation, but a preparation of the mind. By acknowledging the impermanence of all external goods and relationships, you train yourself to face life's uncertainties without panic or despair. You come to appreciate what you have, and you steel yourself against the fear of loss. It is fear that often constrains our actions. We do not try new things because we fear failure, or we cling to what we have because we fear scarcity. Negative visualization helps us see that even if we were to lose these externals, the core of who we are, our ability to respond with virtue, remains intact. This clarity can empower you to stretch beyond the limits your fear imposes. Let us consider an example. Suppose you have an aspiration to write a book or start a business. You might feel restricted by the fear of criticism or the possibility of financial loss. The mind races. "I'm too old to try this now," or "People will mock me if I fail." These are precisely the sorts of thoughts that fence us in, preventing growth. A Stoic approach would be to calmly accept that failure and criticism are possible. Indeed, they are part of the uncertain tapestry of human life. Yet they do not define your worth or your freedom. You would imagine the worst-case scenario, face it in your mind, and recognize that even in such a case, your character remains yours to shape. This mental exercise frees you to act, not recklessly, but with measured courage, unshackled from the dread that so often chokes creativity. If the project succeeds, wonderful. If it does not, you remain the kind of person who dared to try, learned lessons, and can move on without regret or a damaged sense of self. Perhaps the next step in training your mind to become limitless is to cultivate what Marcus Aurelius called objective judgment. He emphasized the notion that events themselves are neutral. It is we who label them as good or bad. By changing our interpretation, we change our experience. This does not mean we deny pain or injustice. Rather, we avoid layering additional misery upon ourselves by attaching catastrophic or self-defeating narratives to events. For instance, if you encounter a setback at work, say, a promotion you sought goes to someone else, a typical reaction might be to fall into despair. cursing your luck or questioning your worth. The Stoic shift would be to see the situation for what it is. The outcome did not go your way. Nothing more, nothing less. You can still perform your duties with excellence, you can still be honorable, and you can still chart a path forward. By removing the layer of catastrophic thinking, I am a failure, this is the end of my advancement, you free yourself from the mental chains that hamper your resolve. Seneca spoke often about how fortune can elevate or humble us, yet virtue remains a solid ground that neither fortune's blessings nor curses can shake. If you define yourself by external fortune, wealth, status, recognition, your sense of self expands and contracts with every shift of circumstance, leaving you perpetually vulnerable. But if you anchor yourself in the commitment to reason, honesty, resilience, and moral rectitude, no turn of events can truly rob you of what matters most. Let us remember this, especially in an age where so many measure themselves against the fleeting benchmarks of social media popularity, public applause, or fleeting career triumphs. Those are illusions of success. True success lies in the peaceful confidence that you are living in harmony with your highest principles, refusing to be swayed by the passing storms of luck. Let me tell you another story, one that underscores the power of perspective. In my middle years, I took a risk by joining a friend's venture, pouring my savings and energy into a small business that promised to be innovative. For a time, things went well, and we saw modest growth. I found myself feeling proud, perhaps too proud, of this new identity as an entrepreneur. Yet, as the tides of the market turned, we experienced losses, culminating in the closure of that business. Many of my peers regarded me as unlucky or foolish. Initially, I felt humiliation and regret, weighed down by the sense that I had overreached. But I remembered the Stoic precepts I had studied. I decided to reinterpret the experience not as a personal indictment, but as a valuable lesson. I recognized that while I had lost money and status, I had gained insights into teamwork, financial management, and my own capacity for risk-taking. Rather than wallowing in the notion of failure, I reframed the event as a stepping stone. In so doing, I found a way forward, eventually applying those lessons to more fruitful pursuits. The mind, unbound by the destructive label of failure, proved to be limitless in its ability to adapt and move on. What does it look like then to live each day with this Stoic sense of limitlessness? It means that when you wake in the morning, you remind yourself that you can handle whatever the day brings, provided you keep your judgments and intentions aligned with virtue. You do not fear the unpredictable phone call, the fluctuation of the stock market, or the disappointment of an unfulfilled expectation. Rather, you commit to responding wisely, ethically, and calmly, come what may. In small, habitual acts of self-discipline, rising at a set time, engaging in mindful reflection, perhaps practicing simple daily exercises of the body or the mind, you train yourself for life's bigger challenges. Like a warrior practicing with a wooden sword before the battle, you prepare your mental reflexes for adversity. Bit by bit, you discover that the constraints you assumed were absolute begin to recede. Another dimension of this training involves the consistent practice of gratitude. While Stoicism is often misunderstood as cold or detached, the teachings encourage a profound appreciation for life. Marcus Aurelius frequently expressed thanks for the people and opportunities he encountered. By nurturing gratitude, whether for health, for relationships, or even for the obstacles that sharpen our will, we open our minds to possibility rather than scarcity. This shift in attitude can remove the sense of limitation we feel when we constantly focus on what we lack. When you practice gratitude, you see that you already possess much of what you need to lead a content and purposeful life, even if your ambitions urge you to pursue more. That realization can embolden you to act from a place of abundance instead of fear. Let us address a common misconception that to become limitless in a Stoic sense means to become a sort of emotionless automaton, never flinching or rejoicing. Stoicism does not advocate the suppression of natural human feeling. Rather, it teaches us to examine our emotions critically, to identify those that arise from flawed judgments, and to refine our emotional life so that it aligns with reason. The negative emotions that spring from illusions of control or from inordinate attachment are those we aim to dissolve. But love, compassion, and a righteous indignation at true injustice can remain, shaped by wisdom and directed towards the greater good. A mind trained in Stoicism does not become less human. It becomes more resilient and clear-sighted, more capable of constructive action. Consider for a moment the very notion of being limitless. At first glance, one might think it implies a kind of grandiosity, the idea that we can do anything at all if we put our minds to it. Yet the Stoic notion is subtler. We seek to remove self-imposed limits, illusions, and fears. We do not pretend we can alter the laws of physics or guarantee certain outcomes. Instead, we expand our sense of agency by focusing on the domain that truly belongs to us, our moral and intellectual faculties. From that vantage point, we discover that we can face challenges we once deemed insurmountable, endure trials we once believed would shatter us, and maintain integrity in situations we previously thought would compromise us. This is the power that the great Stoics sought to unleash. The mind freed from illusions, free to commit wholeheartedly to virtue, come what may. A practical tip that I often share with younger men, and indeed with anyone who wishes to deepen their Stoic practice, is to adopt a routine of morning and evening reflection. In the morning, you might sit quietly for a few minutes, considering the day ahead. Ask yourself, what tasks lie before me? And how can I approach them with wisdom and composure? What potential distractions or irritations might arise, and how will I choose to respond? By mentally rehearsing these situations, you reduce the risk of being blindsided by them. In the evening, set aside another few minutes to review how the day went. Did you remain steadfast in the face of frustration? Did you let petty annoyances overshadow your better judgment? Did you act in ways that align with your principles, or did you slip into old habits of blaming and complaining? This daily cycle of preparation and review is akin to training sessions in a gym. It builds mental muscles over time. As you do this, you will find that certain themes emerge, moments where you realize you felt limited by a fear of social judgment or by an irrational impatience. In shining a light on these moments, you begin the process of dissolving those mental constraints. The next time a similar situation arises, you'll recall your evening reflection and consciously choose a different path. That is the essence of mental training in Stoicism, a continuous practice of self-awareness, correction, and improvement. Let me circle back to an essential principle, one that often goes overlooked in modern interpretations of Stoicism: the primacy of virtue. The Stoics did not merely want us to be calm in adversity, they wanted us to be good, honest, just, courageous, and disciplined. This moral focus is not a secondary concern, it is central to the Stoic vision of a flourishing life. You might ask, how does the pursuit of virtue relate to becoming limitless? The answer is that a life guided by virtue is inherently free of the self-imposed constraints that come from vice and misguided desires. A dishonest person is forever bound by the need to maintain their falsehoods. A greedy person is perpetually limited by the fear of loss and the drive for more. An intemperate person is controlled by cravings that warp their judgment. By contrast, if you ground yourself in virtue, you move through the world with integrity. You are not encumbered by the webs of deceit, envy, or excessive craving. This moral clarity creates an inner expansiveness, the sense that you can act decisively and fearlessly because your conscience is clean and your intentions are honorable. In the context of everyday life, this means that training your mind to be limitless involves cultivating ethical habits as much as mental discipline. You commit to telling the truth even when it's inconvenient. You practice fairness even when you could gain an advantage through manipulation. You exhibit temperance, refusing to indulge every temptation or impulse that arises. By doing these things consistently, your confidence in your own character grows, and that confidence translates into a greater willingness to take on challenges. You trust yourself to handle difficulties not just competently, but ethically. This self-trust is a powerful antidote to hesitation and self-doubt. One might argue, but what of ambition, striving, and success in the worldly sense? Don't these require a certain drive that might clash with Stoic detachment? The Stoics, especially someone like Marcus Aurelius, who held the highest position in the empire, would say that ambition can coexist with virtue, provided that you keep your motivations pure and remain aware that externals are not the ultimate measure of worth. Ambition becomes destructive when it is fueled by ego, envy, or a misguided belief that wealth or status is the key to happiness. Ambition becomes noble when it is directed toward improving the world and honing your talents in service of something greater. Thus, you can train yourself to excel in your profession or your art without letting failure or success define who you are at your core. You work diligently, with dedication, but you do not place your entire self-esteem on the outcome. If you fail, you learn and persist. If you succeed, you remain humble and continue striving to do good. In this manner, you blend worldly ambition with Stoic wisdom, discovering that the real limitlessness lies in the capacity to keep growing, keep evolving, without being tethered to fleeting triumphs or tribulations. Now, I want to speak briefly about the social dimension of becoming limitless. We are not isolated beings. Our interactions with family, friends, colleagues, and society at large play a major role in our experience of freedom or limitation. A Stoic does not seek to become an aloof hermit, indifferent to social bonds. On the contrary, Marcus Aurelius emphasized the idea that human beings are made for cooperation, like feet or hands working together. So, what is the Stoic approach to relationships in the context of mental training? It is to engage with others wholeheartedly, yet maintain autonomy over one's own mind. We care for others, support them, and perform our social duties, but we remain aware that we cannot control their behavior or beliefs. We do not tie our emotional well-being to their approval, nor do we lash out when they fail to meet our expectations. Instead, we bring our best self to the relationship, a self shaped by virtue and self-awareness, and allow others the dignity of their own choices. This perspective can liberate us from the endless cycles of resentment and disappointment that plague those who assume they can bend others to their will. Imagine the scenario of a father guiding his adult children through their own life challenges. The father might be tempted to try to solve every problem for them, or to become anxious when they do not follow his advice. A Stoic father would instead provide guidance, love, and resources where appropriate, but he would acknowledge that each child's choices lie outside his sphere of control. His mind remains at peace, for he trusts in the principles he has imparted. He does not see their mistakes as a reflection of his own worth, nor does he see their accomplishments as his personal triumph. He is free from the emotional turmoil of unbridled attachment, yet still caring and engaged. This equilibrium is a hallmark of the Stoic, who has trained his mind to respect both his own agency and the agency of others. Thus, The social dimension of Stoic practice reveals another path to limitlessness. We cease to define ourselves through the eyes of others and instead act from a wellspring of inner conviction. This does not make us selfish. Rather, it enables us to be more consistent and reliable in our relationships, for we are not buffeted by insecurity or raging ego. Over time, people may come to respect this steadiness, and we find that our influence grows naturally because our counsel is anchored in calm reason rather than emotional reactivity. Now let me invite you to begin this journey of training your mind, if you have not done so already, or to deepen it, if you are already on the path. Reflect on one area in your life where you feel limited. It might be a habit you've long wanted to break, a goal you've been too afraid to chase, or a relationship dynamic that causes ongoing frustration. Apply the Stoic principle of control. Identify what parts of that situation truly lie within your power. Then decide how you will address those aspects, through altered perspective, renewed discipline, or a change in your actions. Accept the aspects that lie beyond your influence. By focusing on your mental and moral faculties, you'll find that even long-standing problems begin to loosen their grip. This is the beginning of discovering that you are far less bound than you once imagined. As we bring this first part of our extended reflection to a close, let me echo the words of Marcus Aurelius, who wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Indeed, the strength of which he spoke is precisely the key to becoming limitless. It is not a mystical notion, it is the logical consequence of understanding that your mind, and your mind alone, shapes your experience of life. By training it in the Stoic manner, through reasoned reflection, moral discipline, and a clear recognition of what is and is not in our control, you gradually dissolve the artificial boundaries that fear, ignorance, and ego impose. Life then becomes an arena in which you engage fully, without the crippling weight of self-doubt or destructive passion. You begin to sense deep in your bones that no matter the circumstance, you can remain true to yourself, at peace, and fully alive. Let us now delve further into the process of training your mind to become limitless, anchoring ourselves more deeply in the wisdom of Stoicism. In the previous section, we sketched the broad contours, the importance of distinguishing between what lies within our control and what does not, the exercise of negative visualization, the reframing of events through objective judgment, the daily discipline of morning and evening reflections, and the moral underpinnings of Stoic thought. We shall now expand these themes, introducing additional techniques and exploring the nuances that can help you internalize and apply these teachings in your life. First, it is worth clarifying why we Stoics speak so much about the mind rather than the body. It might appear that by focusing on mental exercises, we neglect the physical dimension. But this is not the case. The Stoics recognize the importance of caring for the body, maintaining health and fitness as part of one's duty. However, they also understood that even the strongest body is vulnerable to injury, disease, and the ravages of time, whereas the mind, properly trained, can remain free and resilient under the harshest conditions. Think of Epictetus, who was physically disabled, yet became one of the greatest teachers of Stoic philosophy. His leg was crippled, but his mind soared beyond the confines of circumstance. It is precisely because the mind transcends physical boundaries that Stoicism emphasizes it so heavily. When we talk about becoming limitless, we are primarily referring to the expansion of the mind's capacity to adapt, remain tranquil, and exercise virtue under any condition. This does not mean the body is irrelevant. Indeed, bodily discipline supports mental discipline. Many Stoics practiced moderate habits of exercise, rest, and diet as part of their pursuit of virtue, but the real seat of your freedom is your capacity for rational choice and self-awareness. Let us probe further the practice of negative visualization. Some people misunderstand it as wallowing in grim fantasies, yet its intent is quite different. By imagining the loss of what we cherish, we steel ourselves against the shock of adversity. Furthermore, by contemplating such loss, we become more grateful for what we have. In practical terms, you might occasionally take a few moments to envision life without your comfortable home, your steady job, or even some of your physical abilities. Through this mental rehearsal, you do not become morbidly obsessed. Rather, you become appreciative. You might wake up the next day in your same house with your same job and realize that these are not guaranteed rights, but blessings. That sense of gratitude can fuel a more engaged and wholehearted approach to daily life. It also reduces the terror of losing these things in the future, because in a sense, you have already prepared yourself. In my own experience, negative visualization helped me endure a tumultuous economic period when I was younger. Amid the uncertainty, I found comfort in reminding myself that even if I lost my possessions, I would still have my ability to work, to reason, and to form meaningful relationships. That mental preparation proved invaluable when I indeed had to part with certain luxuries and tighten my budget. Rather than spiraling into despair, I adapted, guided by the knowledge that my core identity and resources for resilience remained intact. Another powerful Stoic technique for training the mind is what I call value clarification. We often limit ourselves when we chase after things that do not truly align with our deepest values. For instance, if you find yourself embroiled in office politics, constantly jockeying for favor or recognition, pause and reflect. Is this truly what you value, or have you been swept up by the currents of social expectation? If the latter, consider redirecting your energy toward tasks that genuinely resonate with your sense of purpose. By aligning your pursuits with your authentic values, you remove the internal friction that often undermines our efforts. That alignment brings a sense of liberation because you are no longer a slave to superficial measures of success. You become, in effect, limitless in your sense of internal motivation and direction. Seneca offered a reminder that time is our most precious commodity. If you value wisdom, family, creativity, or service above trivial distractions, direct your energies accordingly. Many men find themselves constrained by a sense of duty to maintain appearances or social standing, funneling their efforts into shallow aims. This misalignment creates an inner tension, a sense that life is being wasted on pursuits that do not truly matter. The Stoic solution is straightforward, but not easy. Reflect on what you genuinely cherish and prioritize it in your daily life. That act of prioritization requires discipline, for it may mean turning down invitations that do not serve your higher goals, or having the courage to walk away from a lucrative but soul-crushing venture. In addition to negative visualization and value clarification, the Stoics strongly advocated self-restraint or temperance as a means of training the mind. Temperance is the virtue that governs our appetites and impulses. By consciously choosing to limit our indulgences, we cultivate an inner fortitude. Consider the example of restricting certain comforts for brief periods, perhaps skipping a meal or sleeping on a simpler bed, merely to remind yourself that you can endure discomfort. Seneca wrote of sometimes dining on the simplest fare, wearing coarse clothing and asking himself, "Is this what I feared?" By voluntarily exposing ourselves to mild hardship, we reduce the mental barriers that arise when we encounter adversity outside our control. Temperance helps us realize that we can be content with less than we imagine, and that many of our perceived needs are in fact preferences or habits. There is a subtlety here, though. The goal is not to become an ascetic hermit, denying yourself pleasure or comfort for the sake of punishment. Rather, the aim is to remind yourself that you are larger than your cravings or aversions. You can choose how to respond to them. This sense of choice is precisely what fosters the feeling of limitlessness. A person who is constantly at the mercy of impulses, whether for food, drink, validation, or entertainment, has little freedom. By practicing temperance, you shift the balance of power to your rational will. Over time, you'll notice that many of the activities or items you once felt you had to have become optional, leaving you freer to direct your resources toward what truly matters. Let us touch upon the importance of self-reflection in this process. Stoics often emphasize journaling or a meditative review of the day. If you find yourself short on time, even a few minutes of quiet contemplation can suffice. Write or think about situations in which you acted in ways that aligned with your ideals and those in which you faltered. The aim is not self-flagellation, but learning. By pinpointing where you succumbed to anger, anxiety, or vanity, you can devise strategies to handle similar scenarios more gracefully in the future. If you celebrated small victories, moments of patience or generosity, acknowledge them and reinforce your capacity for good action. Over weeks and months, this practice shapes your mental reflexes, making it more natural to choose the Stoic path of reason and virtue in the heat of the moment. It is also beneficial to study the lives and words of the ancient Stoics and other wise individuals. Seneca's letters, Marcus Aurelius's meditations, and Epictetus's discourses remain instructive thousands of years later because they address the core of the human condition, our vulnerability to fear, anger, and despair, and our capacity to transcend these through philosophy. By reading these texts not as historical curiosities, but as manuals for living, you immerse yourself in a tradition of wisdom. This daily or weekly study can serve as a reminder that you are not alone in your struggles and that countless individuals before you have found a way to persevere. Such study also connects you to a lineage of thought, a sense that you are partaking in a grand conversation about the best way to live. Now, let us consider the role of courage in becoming limitless. Courage, for the Stoics, is not merely about battlefield valor. It is the willingness to face difficulties, be they external challenges or internal doubts, without abandoning reason or virtue. Many times our sense of limitation stems from fear. Fear of failure, fear of ridicule, fear of the unknown. To train your mind in courage, you might start with small acts of bravery. If you habitually shy away from speaking your truth in a meeting or a family discussion, practice doing so, politely but firmly. If you often avoid new tasks because you worry about making mistakes, deliberately place yourself in learning situations where mistakes are inevitable and treat them as part of the growth process. Each time you confront a fear head-on, you strengthen the muscle of courage. Over time, larger challenges become less daunting, and you realize that most limitations are illusions shaped by anxiety. This does not mean you become reckless. Stoic courage is tempered by wisdom, but it does mean that you do not let fear dominate your decisions. Hand in hand with courage is the virtue of perseverance or endurance. No matter how well you train your mind, you will encounter setbacks. There will be days when your best-laid plans come undone, or when your stoic composure falters in the face of provocation. The key to becoming limitless is not to avoid these stumbles altogether, but to rise each time you fall, learning from the slip. Epictetus reminds us that philosophy is a practice, not a mere theory. If you find yourself succumbing to anger or anxiety, take note, reflect on the cause, and resolve to do better next time. This iterative process of trial, reflection, and recommitment is where true growth happens. People sometimes believe that philosophers or Stoics remain serene at all times. In reality, we all wrestle with passions. The difference is that the Stoic man commits to continuous improvement, never using his lapses as excuses to abandon the path. As we deepen our exploration, it's valuable to highlight the social element once again. While Stoicism can be pursued individually, community support can greatly enhance one's progress. Seek out conversations with like-minded individuals or join groups that explore philosophy and self-improvement. Discussing Stoic ideas with others can clarify your understanding, challenge your assumptions, and provide mutual encouragement. If such groups are not available locally, online communities or reading circles can fill the gap. The key is to nurture your Stoic mind in an environment that values reason, virtue, and respect. Be mindful, though, not to turn Stoicism into an echo chamber of self-righteousness. True Stoicism remains grounded in humility and the awareness that we are all students of life. Moreover, do not be surprised if those around you notice changes in your demeanor as you train your mind. You may become calmer under stress, less reactive to petty slights, more measured in your speech. Some may admire these qualities, while others might feel unsettled, especially if they have relied on your past weaknesses to manipulate or bond with you through negativity. Remain compassionate, but stay firm. Your growth is a testament to what is possible, and it may inspire others to re-evaluate their own limits. One potential obstacle to all this is modern society's emphasis on instant gratification. Stoic mind training is incremental, requiring patience and consistency. In a world where we expect rapid results, from weight loss programs to financial schemes, it can be frustrating to realize that philosophical growth unfolds gradually. Yet that is precisely why Stoicism is powerful. It deals with fundamental aspects of human nature that do not yield to quick fixes. Embrace the long journey, and you will find that each small insight and improvement accumulates over time, shaping you into a more confident, compassionate, and fearless individual. Now, some exciting news. Our channel now offers a members club. By joining it, you'll unlock exclusive benefits, deeper content dives, and personal insights. Join us on this journey, and let's build a meaningful life together. And I also humbly ask you to leave a comment, as it helps my channel immensely. If you do not know what to comment, just write "better every day," so I know you reached this far. And don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Also, I've linked some books on Stoicism that helped me become the man I am today, and will also help you achieve a Stoic mindset. Let us also address the matter of emotional intelligence. Stoic training does not advocate suppressing feelings. Rather, it seeks to harness them wisely. For instance, if you feel anger, ask yourself what triggered it. Is it truly the external event, or is it your interpretation of that event, your assumption that you have been personally affronted or wronged? By examining the root of anger, you often find that it is tied to expectations or judgments. Adjusting those judgments can dissipate much of the anger. Similarly, if you feel sadness or grief, Stoicism does not demand that you push it away. Instead, it encourages you to honor those feelings as natural responses, while reminding yourself that you can bear them and that they will pass in time. The notion of limitlessness emerges here in recognizing that our emotional states, though powerful, need not drown our rational faculties. We can acknowledge, process, and integrate emotions without becoming their slave. Another aspect to contemplate is how Stoic mind training influences our sense of purpose or meaning. Many men reach a stage in life where they question whether their daily efforts matter or whether there is some higher calling they should pursue. Stoicism does not hand you a one-size-fits-all purpose, but it does suggest that a life dedicated to virtue, wisdom, and the service of the common good is inherently meaningful. This pursuit can manifest in countless ways, through your profession, your family life, your volunteer work, or your creative endeavors. By aligning with these higher principles, you transform ordinary tasks into expressions of character. The limitlessness we speak of is partly about transcending nihilism and recognizing that you have the capacity to contribute positively to the world, regardless of your station. An illustrative anecdote may help here. I once knew a colleague who felt trapped in a monotonous job. Each day he would complain about the drudgery and fantasize about quitting. Over time, he stumbled upon Stoic teachings and began to see that while he might not have immediate control over his employment situation, he did control his attitude and his approach to work. He started experimenting with ways to find meaning in the tasks he performed, seeing them as opportunities to practice diligence, precision, and service to others. He also began using his free time more constructively, studying new skills that aligned with his deeper interests. Gradually, as his mindset shifted, new possibilities opened up. He secured a better position, but more importantly, his sense of self-worth no longer hinged on whether he had an ideal job. He had trained his mind to find meaning wherever he was. This is the essence of Stoic limitlessness. You bring your values and mindset to any situation, reshaping your experience from within. Now, you might ask, isn't there a danger of complacency? If I can find meaning and contentment in any situation, will I lose the drive to improve my circumstances? The Stoics would say no. Tranquility of mind is not the same as passivity. You may well choose to pursue a new job, campaign against injustice, or innovate in your field. What changes is your internal posture. You no longer act out of desperation or a sense of incompleteness. Rather, you act from a place of centered resolve and moral clarity. This actually heightens your effectiveness because you are not sabotaged by anxiety or consumed by frustration when obstacles arise. You work diligently on external goals while recognizing that your true fulfillment is not at the mercy of outcomes. This combination of outward effort and inward equanimity is a hallmark of Stoic mastery. As we approach the end of this second section, I invite you to reflect on how these ideas might play out in your own life this very week. Identify a challenge or situation that feels confining, a place where you sense your limits. Perhaps it is an interpersonal conflict or a daunting project. Apply the Stoic lens. Ask yourself what part of the situation is truly up to you. Focus your mental energy there while relinquishing attachment to what is not. Practice negative visualization if you find yourself paralyzed by fear of loss or embarrassment. Lean on your values, remembering that aligning with them brings integrity and reduces internal friction. Engage in small acts of courage and temperance to strengthen your resolve. Finally, reflect each evening on your progress, not with harsh self-criticism, but with the measured eye of a student refining his craft. By systematically implementing these practices, you build a momentum that can profoundly shift your experience of life. Adversities that once seemed insurmountable become stepping stones to growth. Your sense of self expands beyond the confines of superficial success or failure. You begin to see that you are indeed more capable and more resilient than you realized. This is the steady unfolding of the limitless mind, the Stoic mind that neither cowers in the face of misfortune nor becomes intoxicated by fortune's gifts. It is a mind that finds its roots in rational agency and virtue, standing firm no matter how fiercely the winds of change blow. We come now to the third phase of this reflection on training your mind to become limitless under the guidance of Stoicism. By now, you will have grasped the fundamental practices: negative visualization, distinguishing what is in and out of our control, cultivating virtue as the bedrock of freedom, harnessing courage, temperance, and perseverance. We have explored how these methods apply to daily life, from workplace dilemmas to personal ambitions and relationships. Let us deepen the discussion further, venturing into the subtler psychological aspects of Stoic training and examining how this philosophy might intersect with our modern world. One crucial idea we have yet to emphasize fully is the Stoic perspective on time. Marcus Aurelius wrote frequently about the brevity of life and the importance of recognizing its fleeting nature. Far from encouraging despair, this awareness of mortality can energize us to make the most of each day. If we live as though time is infinite, we often squander it in trivial pursuits. But when we confront the reality that our days are numbered, each moment becomes an opportunity to refine our character, serve others, or explore our creative capacities. This sense of urgency can be a powerful driver to overcome self-imposed limits. After all, if we understand that we have only a finite window to cultivate our potential and make a positive impact, why waste another hour cowering behind fears or habits that no longer serve us? A related concept is the Stoic call to live in accordance with nature. The ancients meant several things by nature: the natural order of the universe, the nature of human beings as rational and social creatures, and one's individual nature or talents. To become limitless, a Stoic seeks to align his choices with the rational and social aspects of human nature, acting ethically, respecting reason, and contributing to the community. At the same time, he recognizes his individual dispositions and gifts, endeavoring to make the most of them without being ensnared by envy of others' talents. This alignment fosters a sense of harmony that dissolves many of the psychological conflicts that limit us. Instead of wishing to be someone else or living in contradiction to our values, we embrace who we are and the role we can play in the grand web of existence. Modern society, however, is rife with distractions and distortions. The relentless pace of social media, the pressure to perform, and the flood of information can leave us feeling scattered. A Stoic approach to these challenges is not to reject technology outright, but to use it wisely. We can apply the same principle of distinguishing between what is in our control, how we engage with digital tools, and what is not, the endless stream of content. If you find your mind constantly fixated on comparisons or cravings triggered by online platforms, practice moderation. Set boundaries for how often and how long you immerse yourself in these digital spaces. Approach them with a purpose, seeking knowledge, connection, or inspiration, and disengage when the purpose is fulfilled. In doing so, you preserve your mental clarity, reminding yourself that your worth is not measured in likes or digital affirmations. This discipline fosters a sense of mental expansiveness. You are no longer a pawn of digital algorithms, but a deliberate user of technology who retains autonomy over thought and attention. Let us also address a common stumbling block in Stoic practice: the tension between acceptance of events and the desire for change. Some newcomers worry that if they practice Stoic acceptance of external circumstances, they will become passive and fail to strive for progress. In truth, the Stoics advocate acceptance of the present moment as it is, coupled with directed action to shape the future where one can. Marcus Aurelius, as emperor, did not simply resign himself to the empire's challenges. He worked tirelessly to govern well, reform laws, and defend borders. But he also understood that the outcomes were not solely his to dictate. Thus, Stoic acceptance is not fatalism. It is a clear-eyed recognition of the reality before us, followed by purposeful engagement with what we can influence. This approach frees us from the frustration of wishing reality were otherwise, and allows us to channel our energy effectively into solutions. When you remove the emotional baggage of complaint and resistance, you become more effective at addressing real problems. We should also explore the Stoic practice of self-dialogue. It is said that one of the best ways to fortify your mind is to talk yourself through difficulties in the manner of a compassionate but firm mentor. For instance, if you find yourself ruminating on a setback, ask, "Does this event truly harm my capacity for virtue? Is my discomfort here more about wounded pride than real damage? Can I find a constructive action to take right now?" By posing such questions, you shift from passive victimhood to active analysis. Epictetus would remind his students that the real measure of adversity is whether it disrupts our moral reasoning. Physical discomfort, financial loss, or social disapproval cannot poison your mind unless you permit it. Through conscious self-dialogue, you develop the habit of questioning negative assumptions and recalibrating your perspective. A further layer of Stoic mind training involves the concept of role ethics. The Stoics recognize that each of us occupies multiple roles. We may be fathers, husbands, employees, citizens, or community leaders. Each role has certain duties or expectations. To become limitless in your mind, it helps to reflect on these roles and how they interconnect with your Stoic commitments. For example, as a father, your role might demand patience, guidance, and the provision of a stable environment. As a citizen, it might call for participation in civic life, respect for the law, and advocacy for justice. When you recognize these duties, you find clarity in situations where competing demands arise. You also prevent yourself from drifting into selfishness or apathy because you see that your choices affect others. This sense of responsibility can expand your sense of purpose, reinforcing the idea that you have an impact on the world around you, even if only in a small sphere. That knowledge can be a catalyst for pushing beyond self-imposed boundaries. Now, let us touch on the Stoic view of emotions once more, especially in the context of deep personal loss or tragedy. The limitlessness we speak of does not imply that you will never grieve or feel sorrow. Stoicism recognizes that certain emotions, like sadness at the death of a loved one, are natural and even appropriate. The key is that you do not let these emotions turn into prolonged despair or a rejection of life's course. You allow yourself to feel the grief, honor it, and then gradually return to the recognition that life continues to offer avenues for growth and meaning. The limitlessness is thus in your capacity to rebound, to honor the transient nature of all things without becoming permanently stuck. In many ways, it is about resilience rather than detachment. Consider an example. A man who loses a close friend might experience a wave of sadness, which is natural. The Stoic approach is to channel that sadness into gratitude for the shared memories and reflection on one's own mortality. This reflection might spur him to live more fully, to avoid petty squabbles, and to appreciate the friends and family who remain. In the face of tragedy, the untrained mind can spiral into hopelessness, while the Stoic mind acknowledges pain, yet discerns lessons and inspiration. Another cornerstone of Stoic mind training is the development of mindful presence. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly counseled himself to be here now, to focus on the present action rather than get lost in regrets about the past or fantasies about the future. When we become consumed by what was or what might be, we sabotage our ability to act effectively in the current moment. We also limit our capacity for joy, which often arises from fully immersing ourselves in the task at hand or the conversation we are engaged in. Mindful presence does not require elaborate rituals. It is a simple moment-to-moment discipline. Each time you notice your mind wandering into worry or rumination, gently bring it back to the present. Over time, this practice sharpens your focus and reduces anxiety. You realize that much of our suffering arises from mental time travel, lamenting something that cannot be changed, or fearing something that has not yet happened. In conjunction with mindful presence, we might explore the power of deliberate focus. Stoics recognized that the mind can be a chaos of impressions if left unchecked. By practicing single-pointed focus, whether on your breath, your reading, or a task, you learn to channel mental energy. This skill counters modern distractions and cultivates an inner stability. The more stable your mind, the less you will find yourself at the mercy of fleeting urges or external pressures. This too contributes to the sense of limitlessness, as your mind becomes a reliable instrument under your command, rather than a wild horse dragging you wherever it pleases. Let us not forget the role of aesthetics and beauty in Stoic thought. While often portrayed as austere, many Stoics appreciated the beauty of nature, art, and harmonious order. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the patterns of nature, the magnificence of cosmic order. Contemplating beauty can uplift the mind and expand its perspective beyond petty concerns. It reminds us that we are part of something grander. When you pause to watch a sunrise, admire a well-crafted piece of furniture, or listen attentively to music that stirs you, you open your heart to a sense of wonder. This wonder can dissolve the narrow confines of self-centered thought, connecting you to a universal harmony. The Stoic sees in such moments an opportunity to reflect on the transience of all things and the underlying unity of life. This reflection can reinforce your commitment to living wisely and compassionately, for you see that you are not an isolated being, but part of an interconnected web. In our modern world, many men struggle with a sense of isolation or nihilism, driven by fragmented communities and a barrage of unsettling news. The Stoic path to limitlessness can alleviate this sense of alienation by drawing you back to your sphere of influence, reminding you that your actions, however small, can manifest virtue and create ripples of positive effect. It shows you that you belong to a lineage of thoughtful individuals who have wrestled with similar doubts and found a way to live meaningfully. It also assures you that your essence, your capacity for reason and moral choice, remains inviolable, no matter how tumultuous the world becomes. Let us illustrate with another personal anecdote. In my later years, I found myself troubled by global events, wars, famines, political turmoil, wondering if my small contributions made any difference. I turned to Marcus Aurelius, who often reminded himself that one's task is to do what is just, speak what is true, and remain kind. The outcome, whether recognized by the masses or not, should not dissuade us. This perspective rekindled my sense of agency. While I could not single-handedly end global strife, I could influence my immediate environment for the better. I could volunteer my skills, offer mentorship, or donate resources where needed. Each small act, grounded in reason and virtue, expands our sense of what is possible. Over time, such acts accumulate, and we discover that our circle of influence is broader than we initially believed. This is how the mind becomes limitless, by refusing to yield to cynicism and instead persistently acting on principle. Another practice that can be woven into your Stoic routine is the concept of self-reliance balanced with interdependence. Epictetus teaches self-reliance in the sense that you must take responsibility for your judgments and happiness. Yet the Stoics also recognize the social nature of human beings. Self-reliance does not mean you never seek help or collaboration. It means you do not outsource your moral and emotional well-being to others. For instance, if you need advice or assistance, you ask for it without shame. But if that assistance does not come, you do not collapse into despair, for you still maintain the power to adapt and seek alternatives. In other words, you remain flexible and resourceful, never placing your entire worth or survival in the hands of others. This balanced approach prevents both the loneliness of radical individualism and the dependency of those who cannot stand on their own feet. If you wish to integrate these concepts systematically, consider establishing a daily Stoic routine. Upon waking, reaffirm your commitment to live virtuously, perhaps by reading a short passage from a Stoic text or silently reciting a maxim. Today, I shall meet people who are vain, ungrateful, or dishonest, but I will not be harmed by them if I keep to reason. Then, through the day, practice mindful presence and self-dialogue whenever challenges arise. In the evening, engage in reflective journaling, noting where you succeeded or struggled in applying Stoic principles. This cyclical process, study, application, reflection, anchors Stoic philosophy in lived experience. It transforms abstract ideas into tangible habits that reshape how you perceive and respond to the world. Let us also consider the aspirational dimension of Stoicism. While the philosophy is pragmatic, it also invites us to aim at moral and mental excellence. You may have role models, figures from history, mentors in your life, or archetypal heroes. The Stoics would tell you to contemplate how these figures embody virtue, courage, or clarity of mind, and then emulate their traits. This is not hero worship. It is the cultivation of an internal standard that pulls you upward. When you are tempted to act ignobly, ask, would my role model do this? How would they handle this situation? Even if you do not reach their level, you will improve by aspiring to something greater than your current self. Perhaps you've come to realize that one of the greatest obstacles to becoming limitless is self-doubt. A nagging internal voice that says, I am not good enough, I cannot change, or I've failed before, so I'll fail again. Stoicism directly counters this voice by reminding you that you are defined not by your past, but by your present capacity for moral choice. Every moment is a fresh opportunity to act with wisdom and courage. The mistakes of the past need not dictate your future, provided you learn from them. This perspective can dissolve the chains of shame or regret, liberating you to pursue new endeavors. Life is a continuous series of nows, and in each now, you can choose the Stoic path. Moreover, your self-concept expands when you view yourself as part of a larger story. Stoicism situates you within the grand continuum of nature, reminding you that you have a role to play in the cosmic order, however small it may seem. This cosmic perspective can be humbling and empowering simultaneously. Humbling because you see how vast the universe is. Empowering because you realize that your rational faculties link you to that grand design. You can reflect its order and harmony in your own sphere by living virtuously. This can give a sense of cosmic significance to your day-to-day choices, dispelling the notion that you are an isolated, meaningless fragment. To wrap up this third segment, let us recall that the journey toward a limitless mind is neither linear nor without setbacks. Stoicism is a practice, and like any discipline, it demands consistent effort and reflection. At times you may feel an exhilarating sense of progress, only to stumble when life throws unexpected challenges your way. Remain patient. The very nature of Stoic training is to prepare you for adversity, not to promise an unbroken string of successes. Each obstacle becomes a test, an opportunity to refine your philosophy. Even if you fail at times to uphold the Stoic ideals, that failure can become a lesson that propels you forward with greater insight. Over time, as you accumulate these lessons, you will notice a profound shift in your mental landscape. Fears that once loomed large no longer paralyze you. Anger that flared easily now smolders less frequently, and a sense of possibility replaces the old constraints of self-doubt. That is the essence of Stoic limitlessness, the gradual unveiling of your true capacity for reason, virtue, and inner freedom. As we transition to our final section, let us hold fast to the notion that the mind, disciplined and aligned with nature, can transcend the artificial boundaries imposed by fear, ignorance, and external pressure. We shall next explore how to sustain this transformation over the long haul, weaving Stoic principles into the very fabric of your life so that they become second nature, guiding you through every season and challenge. We arrive now at the concluding portion of this extensive dialogue on training your mind to become limitless through Stoicism. In the preceding segments, we have laid out the philosophical underpinnings and practical strategies that guide one toward greater mental freedom, recognizing the domain of control, practicing negative visualization, embracing virtues like courage and temperance, engaging in consistent self-reflection, and cultivating a perspective that transcends immediate circumstances. This final installment will focus on how to sustain and deepen your Stoic practice, integrating it so fully into your character that it becomes your guiding compass rather than a set of abstract teachings. In many ways, the crux of Stoic transformation lies in repetition and habituation. Epictetus reminds us that philosophy is something we must do, not just study intellectually. We become what we repeatedly practice. The mind, like a muscle, grows stronger through consistent and deliberate use. If you consistently question your impulses, examine your judgments, and choose virtue over vice, you rewire the mental pathways that once led you into anxiety or anger. Over time, these new pathways become second nature. Where you once might have felt overwhelmed, you now respond with calm deliberation. Where you once might have lashed out in frustration, you find yourself pausing to reflect. This metamorphosis is gradual, but its effects are profound and lasting. However, even as your Stoic practice becomes more ingrained, you will face moments of relapse. Life is unpredictable, and certain events, loss, betrayal, sudden misfortune, can shake your resolve. In those instances, remember the Stoic counsel to avoid self-condemnation. Berating yourself for not living up to the ideal only adds to the burden. Instead, calmly acknowledge the slip and revisit the principles that once guided you successfully. A brief stumble does not negate the progress made. It merely signals an opportunity to reaffirm your commitment. By reframing setbacks as lessons, you maintain the positive momentum of growth. Another important aspect of sustained practice is cultivating a supportive environment. While Stoicism teaches self-sufficiency of mind, it does not advocate deliberate immersion in toxic or draining circumstances. Seek companionship with individuals who respect your pursuit of wisdom, who encourage self-improvement rather than mock it. If your social circle is filled with negativity, gossip, or shallow pursuits, consider whether you can gradually shift toward relationships that offer deeper reciprocity and shared values. This does not mean you abandon old friends who do not share your philosophy, but you might set boundaries on how much time you spend in discussions that undermine your Stoic mindset. Life's shortness calls us to choose our influences wisely. Similarly, if you find fulfillment in certain activities that harmonize with Stoic principles, like volunteering, mentorship, creative expression, or martial arts training, pursue them wholeheartedly. Such activities reinforce discipline, empathy, or resilience, translating Stoic theory into tangible experience. The more you immerse yourself in constructive undertakings, the less room remains for idle rumination or detrimental habits. This integration of Stoicism into lifestyle choices strengthens your resolve and broadens your horizons. Beyond the personal sphere, there is a larger social or even political dimension to consider. Marcus Aurelius, as emperor, was keenly aware that his philosophical insights were not just for private solace, they shaped how he governed. While most of us will not rule empires, we each hold positions of leadership in some capacity, within families, workplaces, or communities. Stoic leadership involves leading by example, demonstrating integrity, fairness, and calm under pressure. When faced with conflicts, a Stoic leader seeks reasoned dialogue rather than impulsive decrees. When making decisions that affect others, he reflects on justice and the common good. This approach not only enriches those around you, but also solidifies your own Stoic commitment, as it challenges you to apply your principles in real, consequential situations. Speaking of leadership, one of the greatest services you can provide as a Stoic practitioner is to help others discover their own capacity for resilience. Whether through informal conversations or structured mentoring, share the insights you have gained. Offer guidance without pedantry or judgment. When someone struggles with fear or anger, reflect back to them the Stoic perspective that has aided you. Encourage them to question the sources of their suffering, to distinguish between what they can and cannot change. Show empathy for their struggle while gently reminding them of their inner power. In doing so, you fortify not only their journey, but also your own, for teaching is one of the best ways to internalize what you have learned. There is also value in periodically reviewing your life's trajectory in a broader sense. Seneca's letters reveal how he regularly contemplated whether his current pursuits were aligning him with wisdom or dragging him back into worldly vanities. You might designate a weekend each quarter or a day each month for deeper reflection, reviewing personal goals, moral progress, and relationships. Ask, have I allowed new forms of self-imposed limitation to creep in? Am I living in harmony with the virtues I espouse, or have I been swayed by superficial desires? Such periodic introspection can recalibrate your path, catching subtle drifts before they become entrenched. Think of it as a compass check on the journey toward the best version of yourself. In modern times, we have a plethora of information on psychology, neuroscience, and personal development, much of which echoes or complements Stoic teachings. If you find it helpful, you may integrate insights from these fields, as long as they resonate with the Stoic emphasis on reason, virtue, and self-awareness. For instance, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, draws heavily from Stoic ideas about how thoughts influence emotions. Mindfulness meditation, borrowed from Eastern traditions, parallels the Stoic practice of being present and observing the flow of impressions without getting carried away. Far from contradicting Stoicism, these tools can reinforce its principles, provided you remain grounded in the Stoic understanding of agency and moral purpose. Yet keep in mind that technology and self-help trends can sometimes create the illusion of progress without real transformation. Downloading an app or reading a book can be a step in the right direction, but lasting change still requires consistent action and reflection. The Stoics would caution against mistaking the acquisition of knowledge for the cultivation of wisdom. You must walk the path, not merely read about it. Each day, each hour, is a chance to practice patience, to let go of resentments, to perform your duties with excellence, to speak truthfully, and to remain composed in the face of provocation. This is how the Stoic mind takes shape, through lived experience, tested in the crucible of real-world demands. Another subtle point concerns the pursuit of external success. Stoicism does not dismiss ambition, but it insists that you calibrate it with virtue and realism. If you chase success as a means to validate your ego or mask insecurities, you enslave yourself to outcomes. Conversely, if you strive to achieve excellence in your craft or profession out of a genuine wish to contribute and express your potential, that pursuit can be noble. but you must remain prepared to handle setbacks gracefully, never letting them erode your sense of self-worth. You take pride in the effort, not the applause. You measure success by how you uphold virtue during the process, not by the final tally of wins and losses. Such a mindset liberates you from the tyranny of external markers. You become an athlete in the arena of life, playing wholeheartedly yet serene, regardless of the score. Imagine the sense of freedom that arises when you fully integrate these Stoic principles. You wake up each day with gratitude, aware that time is finite and determined to use it well. You approach tasks with clear priorities, focusing on what truly matters rather than getting entangled in trivialities. You interact with others from a place of calm strength, offering help where you can, but not fretting over their judgments. When you encounter an obstacle, you assess it calmly. Can it be changed, or must it be accepted? You adapt your strategy without succumbing to despair or anger. You cultivate emotional poise, acknowledging feelings without letting them overshadow your rational judgment. And in the evening, you reflect on your day, grateful for the chance to grow and mindful of lessons learned. Gradually, worry, regret, and frustration loosen their grip. The horizon of possibility widens, and you sense that indeed, the only real limits are those that arise from ignorance or vice. Still, do not confuse Stoic limitlessness with a fantasy of perpetual bliss. Life will bring challenges, physical ailments, the loss of loved ones, downturns in fortune. A Stoic mind does not erase pain. It teaches you to bear pain with dignity and clarity. It reminds you that suffering, in many cases, arises from a mental narrative that amplifies the raw experience of discomfort or sorrow. By altering the narrative, seeing adversity as a test of character or a natural part of life's cycle, you transform the experience. This process might not eliminate every trace of distress, but it lessens its grip on your mind. You remain free to act ethically and purposefully, even when circumstances are dire. As a final consideration, let us discuss the legacy of a Stoic life. Your influence may extend beyond your immediate circle. Children, apprentices, colleagues, or even strangers who briefly cross your path might be touched by your calm, your integrity, and your kindness. You may never know the full extent of this influence, but rest assured that Stoic virtues have a ripple effect. In an age where division and anxiety often dominate, individuals who embody Stoic principles can serve as beacons of rational compassion. Their presence reassures others that there is another way to live, free of the incessant turmoil that so many accept as normal. And so we conclude our exploration of how to train your mind to become limitless, guided by Stoic philosophy. We began by recognizing that much of our limitation springs from misguided beliefs about what defines our worth and what lies within our power. We examined the practical tools Stoicism provides: negative visualization, value clarification, temperance, self-reflection, mindful presence, and more, and saw how these can be woven into daily life. We acknowledged that this path is neither quick nor easy, but that consistent practice fosters profound transformation. In the end, the Stoic invitation is clear. Dare to let go of the illusions, fears, and attachments that constrict you, and discover the inexhaustible capacity of your rational mind and virtuous heart. May these words serve you as a companion on your journey. Whether you are 25 or 65, you stand at the threshold of a deeper freedom. Each day offers new opportunities to refine your Stoic discipline, and each day you can awaken with the conviction that no matter what fortune brings, you possess within yourself the faculty to respond with wisdom, courage, self-control, and justice. This is the essence of becoming limitless in the Stoic sense. The ongoing realization that while the world may impose many circumstances upon you, It cannot dictate the quality of your mind or the character of your soul unless you allow it. Embrace this truth, live it, and watch as the boundaries you once feared dissolve into the horizon, leaving you free to walk your path with a steady step and a serene spirit. Now, if any part of this message has been helpful to you, leave us your like and comment, helping the algorithm recommend it to someone who needs it at this time. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new videos. And if you look through the videos we've already uploaded, you're sure to find something to take with you. Have a good day.